Welcome to my channel. In this video, I will talk about the most sought after model in ControlNet, that is Canny model. I will discuss various settings available in it and how it affects the final image. And in the end, I will compare it to the depth model and tell you which model is suitable for which kind of images. So watch this video till the end. I have made a separate video on depth model, so if you want, you can check that out. I'll be sharing its link in the description. And if you want to follow along, you will require stable diffusion and ControlNet extension installed on your system. I have made videos where there are step-by-step instructions to install stable diffusion and ControlNet on your system. I will be sharing link of those videos below. So let's get started. So how does Canny model works? Canny model works by creating a grayscale outline map of the image you upload to ControlNet, like the one you see in the left side of the screen. Then that map is used to generate an image depending upon the prompt you enter, like the one you see in the left. Now I will tell you about the various settings available in Canny model and how those affect the final image. So I want to use this image that I have uploaded into ControlNet, and I want this in the style of Armstrong Rolf, who is an artist, and I want the subject to wear a party dress. So a Canny model, there are two preprocessors available. One is the Canny preprocessor, which creates a map with black background and white outlines. There is another option we have here, that is invert from white background and black lines. This we will use if we have white background and black lines. Let's see what kind of map this option will generate. So this is the map that we get when we choose the second option, and this is preferable if our image has a white background like we have in the image that we have uploaded to ControlNet and black outlines like we have on the subject of our main character. So this is the final image I got when I was using the normal Canny model, and this is the final image I got when I was using the invert model. And my prompt was style of Armstrong Rolf wearing a party dress. So I would say that the image that was generated using invert preprocessor is better than the image that was generated using the normal Canny model. Because in this particular case, the outfit of the main subject is too much inspired from the subject of image that I had uploaded into ControlNet. But in case of invert preprocessor, the main subject of the image has rightfully taken inspiration from the prompt I had entered. This time I had uploaded a different image that did not have white background and black outlines, and using normal Canny preprocessor, this is the result I got, which is more in line with the prompt I had entered. So if there is white background in the image you are using and the subject has black clothing or is in black color, use invert preprocessor, and with that you will get much better results. And if you are not seeing this option, update the ControlNet. Another option we have is control weight. Its value ranges from 0 to 2 and default value is 1. This setting is available for all the ControlNet models. Higher the value of control weight, more impact uploaded image will have over the final image you have generated. So let's compare images generated at different control weight value. So this is the image that was generated when control weight was set at 0. As we can see that the image we have uploaded has no influence on the image that was generated. This is the image that was generated at 0.2. I like this image the best because it matches with the prompt that I had entered. My prompt was style of Alibi Alicio, who is an artist, pop art yellow background, photorealistic, wearing a red colored lounge dress. And in this, the background does not match, but the outfit or subject of our image matches perfectly with the prompt I had entered. This is the image that was generated at 0.7, and dress of the subject of input image has very much influence on the dress of the subject of our final image. Same problem I notice when I generate image at default value of 1, and also in case of 1.2. In case of 1.7, image looks less photorealistic and more like a painting. And in case of 2 setting, lips of our subject are messed up. So in this particular case, I got the result I wanted to at 0.2 weight. But this might not always be the case because at different times my requirement may be different. So I encourage you to test out different values of control weight to get the image you want. Next setting we have is starting control step and ending control step. This setting is also available by default for all the ControlNet models. So let's see what it does. To understand that, first you have to understand what sampling steps are. So as of now, I have set sampling steps at 30. So what this means that stable diffusion will take 30 iterations to generate final image from noise. And by default in ControlNet, starting control step is set at 0 and ending control step is set at 1. So what this means that ControlNet will have influence on the image on every iteration of image generation. So this is the image that I had uploaded in ControlNet. And this is the image that was generated when starting control step and ending control step was set at its default value. And my prompt was style of Leonardo da Vinci. Now let's tweak it a bit. Let's set starting control step at 0.33. So what this will do that now ControlNet will not have any influence over the image for first 10 steps of generation, and for last 30 steps ControlNet will have influence. So let's click on generate. So this is the image that we got. Now let's again set starting control step at 0 and now set at ending control step at 0.5. So what this will mean that now ControlNet will have influence over the image for first 15 steps, and for last 15 steps ControlNet will have no influence. So let's see what it does. So this is the image we got. So what these settings are actually doing is that it is increasing and decreasing the effect of ControlNet over the final image, like what control strength does. In my image creation process, I use strength more compared to starting control step and ending control step because its impact on the image is more linear. Now let's see the next setting, that is Canny low threshold and Canny high threshold. To understand this setting, you have to understand how Canny works. As I said before, Canny creates a grayscale map in which all the outlines and edges of the image are demarcated by white lines on a black background. In every image, there are some outlines and edges which are more prominent and some outlines and images are less prominent. Let's understand that with an example. So this is the grayscale map that Canny has created for this image. So as we can see here, that all the prominent edges and outlines of our main subject are demarcated properly in the image. But if we see in the background, there are a lot of lines that have been omitted by Canny. And what Canny omits and what Canny does not omit depend upon the Canny high threshold and Canny low threshold settings. So Canny low threshold by default is set at 100 and Canny high threshold by default is set at 200. Let's say if we increase the Canny high threshold to 255, which is the maximum value, and decrease Canny low threshold to 1, which is the minimum value. And let's generate an image. So this is the grayscale map that was generated by keeping the low threshold to 1 and high threshold to 255. This was generated when both the settings were kept at default. So as we can see, there is not much difference in the grayscale map over here. There are some additional lines that are present in the background. So what happens in these settings, that all the values that are below the low threshold are discarded and all the values that are above the high threshold are taken into consideration. But by keeping both values at extreme, what we have done is that we have given complete control to Canny model to decide what it has to keep and what it has to discard. Now let's keep both the values at 1 and let's see what happens. Now when we keep high threshold at 1, what Canny has done now, that it has taken every possible edge and outline into account, and this is the map that was generated. And by doing that, instead of a woman, we got Jesus, which is not the image we were expecting. And this was the image that we got before. Now let's keep both the values at 255 and see what we get. In this case, as we have kept low threshold at highest value, Canny has omitted maximum possible outlines and edges from the image. And this is the Canny map that we got at default settings. And here, as we can see, the background is completely removed. For my image creation process, I like to keep Canny low threshold at 30 and Canny high threshold at 130. And I get the best results out of it. But I might change its values if I want a different kind of result. By knowing that what these settings do, it allows ourselves to play and tinker with it till we get the result we want. And sometimes we get results that we are not even expecting. The next setting we will talk about is preprocessor resolution. So by default, preprocessor resolution is set at 512. So this is the Canny map that was generated when preprocessor resolution was set at 512, that is default. This was generated when preprocessor resolution was set at 1024, and this was generated when preprocessor resolution was set at 1500. If you have seen my last video on depth model, link of which I have given in the description, there increasing the preprocessor resolution increase the details in the image. But in Canny model, we are noticing that increasing the preprocessor resolution is decreasing the details that we can see in the map that is generated. We see the same effect when we increase the low threshold value. So I don't use this particular setting in case of Canny model. I like keeping it at 512 and checking pixel perfect option. That way I get good results. Next setting is control mode. And here we have three options. Balanced, my prompt is more important, control net is more important. This setting is very easy to understand. If we set this option on balance, then control net and prompt will have equal impact on the image. If we set it on control net is more important, control net will have more influence. And if we set at prompt is more important, prompt will be given more importance. So these are the three images that I have generated. When I checked balance, then this image was generated. When I checked my prompt is more important, this image was generated. And when I said control net is more important, this image was generated. In case of my prompt is more important, we can see that the style of Da Vinci is more evident here. And in this particular case, where I said control net is more important, the image that I uploaded has more influence over the final image. So next setting we have is called Resize mode, which is set at cop and resize by default. So this setting will have no influence if the dimensions of the image that we have uploaded, that in this case is 512 into 768, and dimensions of the image that is being generated is same. But if dimensions are different, like we are setting it now, then here a square image will be generated and the image that we uploaded in the control net is a rectangle. So this setting decides that what happens to the blank area that will be created in the final image. Let me explain to you with an example. So in this particular case, first I had selected the just resize option. So what Stable Diffusion has done is to fill the empty space, it has stretched the image. In crop option, what Stable Diffusion does, that it crops the rectangle's image so that it can fit into a square. And in case of resize and fill, what it does, that it fills the empty area with a similar background like what it has done here. And again we got Jesus. So we are getting this image again and again because I have not mentioned in the prompts that I want a woman. So now I have covered all the settings. Next, I will take different kind of images and we will see that we get better results with depth model or with Canny model. So this is the image I uploaded in control net. This image was generated by depth model and this image was generated by Canny model. All the other settings are in default. The prompt used here is style of art germ, which is a comic book style. So I like the image generated by both the models, but Canny was able to capture the background better when we compare it with depth model. The preprocessor I have used here is depth Midas. Why is it so? That I have explained in detail in my depth model video, so do check it out. I shared the link in the description. So this is the famous scene from movie Titanic. This image was generated by depth model and this image was generated by Canny model. The prompt I used here is Titanic movie deck scene style of J and Slato, who is again an artist. Personally, I like the image generated by depth model more, but image generated by Canny model was able to replicate the original photo better when we compare it to depth model. This is the image of Buddha and this is the image that was generated by Canny model and this is the image that was generated by depth model. I have used preprocessor Resize in this. The prompt I used is statue of Buddha, style of J and Slato. So here we can see that the Canny model was able to capture the details of the main image better when we compare it to depth model. But both models have not generated perfect images. This is the image of drone shot of a city from top. This image was generated by depth model. I have used depth Lattice plus preprocessor here. This is the image that is generated by Canny model. As I mentioned in my depth model video, the depth model is not good at capturing drone images. But here we see that the Canny model was able to capture the image I have uploaded in ControlNet better when we compare it to depth model. So this is another drone shot. And this image was generated by Canny model and this image was generated by depth model. Here also I used prompt style of J and Slato. Here we can see that the both models were not able to capture the details of the main image properly, but we see more resemblance in Canny model. This is image of a scenery where reflection of mountains can be seen in the river. This image was generated in Canny model and this image was generated in depth model. As I mentioned in my video on depth model, the depth model is not good with reflections. But as we see here in Canny model, that it was able to capture the reflection of the mountain in the river. Same thing we can notice in this image where there is a woman who is looking at the mirror. Canny model was able to identify the reflection, but in case of depth model, it is considering the reflection of woman as a different person. I had mentioned in my depth model video that depth model is not good with abstract images. And this is the main image that I had uploaded. Depth model has created a nice abstract art with a woman's face, but it has very less resemblance with the image I had uploaded. But Canny model image has more resemblance with the abstract art image that I had uploaded. This is image of the American cartoon character Dexter. This was the image that was generated by depth model and this was image that was generated by Canny model. Both the models were not able to capture the cartoon character properly, but still Canny model has more resemblance with Dexter. So as we can see, both Canny and depth model have their own characteristics and it depends on your artistic requirement that which model will suit you. So it's difficult to come to a conclusion that which model is better. With this, we come to the end of this video. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more such content.